There was a time when I felt guilty for saying no because I felt everybody needed me to help them do what they needed to do. But I had to realize and evaluate how I was going down an emotional rabbit hole because I was not resting. I was going down an emotional rabbit hole, first of all, because I was anxious all the time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Out Healing Podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Rosalind Phoenix, and I am praying that this podcast has made a tremendous impact in your life and that you are truly learning to heal from the inside out. I am Dr. Rosalind Phoenix, and this is episode 3 of Inside Out Healing Podcast, where today's topic will be press pause, the importance of rest. Because I recognize that there are many people, especially people of faith and in the body of Christ, who do not understand the importance of taking a break. They do not understand the importance of rest. And as a licensed Christian therapist, and a preacher, as well as someone who has learned to lean into personal rest on her own, I am passionate about teaching people, especially people of faith in the body of Christ, the benefits that rest can have on our spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. But before we go any further, I would like to define what rest really means. So what is rest? So I'm glad you asked that question. Rest is to cease from movement or to cease from work in order to recover strength. Because the truth is, our strength sometimes is depleted and we really do need to recover it. So that's what rest is. And I have noticed that there are so many people around the world, especially as men and women of God, who sometimes feel that it is a badge of honor to push ourselves to the limit. It's a badge of honor to overwork ourselves, oftentimes ignoring the toll that it is taking on our spirit. We ignore the toll that it's taking on our minds, and we ignore the toll that it's taking on our bodies. But did you not know that rest is a spiritual principle? How do we know that? Well, first of all, Jesus is our perfect example. He taught us what it meant to rest. Because if you really read, especially in the New Testament where Jesus did ministry, he was a preacher, teacher, prophet. He traveled, he casted out devils, he was healing the sick. But after all that was said and done, he would oftentimes retreat himself and go to be alone because he understood the need for rest. He taught us that rest is sacred. He taught us that in order to prevent burnout, he would have to go and replenish his physical strength. But not only that, there were times when Jesus would often go in solitude, in prayer, to be alone with his Father so that he would have direction for the next season and for the next move of his life. And something else I want you to understand about Jesus is that when he was in human form, he understood that he needed to regain his strength so that he could continue to pour out and be the best minister that he could be. And the thing about Jesus is that even though he is the Son of God, he knew that taking rest would not negate the fact that he was still the Son of God. So what does that say to us as men and women of God, or leaders in the church, or just people in general? That just because you take a rest, it does not negate who you are. Your title still stands. If you choose to take a break, it doesn't make you any less of an apostle. It doesn't make you any less of a prophet, any less of a teacher, evangelist, or pastor. You are still who you are, but you take the rest so that you can become a better version of who God has called you to be. And so I can give a personal testament of what it means to be someone who used to not rest at all. I was that person. I thought I knew how to do everything. I had a full-time job. I was running my business on the side at the time as a therapist. I was serving in the church, working the altar, serving leadership, doing whatever my hands found to do. But I realized I was showing up for everybody else, and I did not show up for myself at all. And so I had to come to the realization, make that inner decision. Remember, we're talking about inside out healing. So it had to start with an inner decision that I could not keep pouring from an empty cup. I had to recognize when my capacity to pour had been depleted. And so now I can honestly say that I live a life of balance. I can honestly say that I say no when I don't feel like I can put my best foot forward. And the truth of the matter is, I can say no, and I can do it without guilt. There was a time when I felt guilty for saying no because I felt everybody needed me to help them do what they needed to do. But I had to realize and evaluate how I was going down an emotional rabbit hole because I was not resting. I was going down an emotional rabbit hole, first of all, because I was anxious all the time, hypersensitive, living in survival mode. I was not thriving. I was just surviving. And then I was depleted spiritually because I was too exhausted to pray the way I knew I should have been praying. And then I was physically going down a rabbit hole because I was tired all the time, overly exhausted. My body just would not cooperate. And that's how I knew something in that moment had to be done. And so, my question to you is, have you evaluated whether or not you are gaining adequate rest? And so, what I will give you is a few tips to help you understand whether or not you have been resting. And when it comes to our physical bodies, you can ask yourself, how do I feel when I wake up every day? Am I tired all the time? Am I exhausted throughout the day? Am I dealing with sicknesses every other week? Is my immune system lower than it should be? Am I developing muscle aches? Am I sore all the time? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then you have not had any type of physical rest. And then there's emotional rest. Ask yourself, am I anxious all the time? Am I able to concentrate? Do I forget things? Am I constantly experiencing brain fog? Can I not complete daily tasks? If you answered yes to any of those questions, evaluate your emotional rest. And then there's that spiritual rest. The way you evaluate if you have had spiritual rest, how do you feel in your relationship with God? Do you feel like you're too exhausted to pray? Are you disconnected from God? Do you feel like going to church is a chore, or do you enjoy being in the presence of the Lord? And if you said no to any of those things, or if you don't enjoy, if you do feel disconnected, if you can't pray, then perhaps there needs to be a spiritual rest, meaning that you have to lean in to the presence of the Lord and allow Him to lead and guide your life. Because the truth is, as human beings, it's our nature to want to control the narrative of our lives. We want to know all the details, and we're constantly on the move, constantly wanting to know what's next, what's my next season. But when you allow yourself to have that rest, that spiritual rest, first of all, then you're allowing God to do what He does behind the scenes and allow it to all come to fruition. And after we get that spiritual rest together, there's that physical and that emotional rest, because we are three-part beings. And what I want you to understand is that I created an acronym for rest when I was figuring out what I would say to you all today, the Lord gave me an acronym for the word rest. And so I want you to listen carefully, lean in to what it really means. So R, recover your strength. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever you feel that you need to do to recover your strength, do that. I know we're all busy. We have families. Some of you are married. Some of you have small children. Some of you are juggling ministries, your church leaders, people of faith. There's so many things that you have to do. Your pastors, you're looking out for ministers, your itinerant ministries, whatever it is that you have to do. But rest is your right. And so you need to carve out time. We need to carve out time every single day and rest and regain that strength. And if you have to, teach your family how to treat you. Say, hey, give me 5, 10, 15 minutes of alone time. If you have smaller children that are not capable of looking out for themselves, if you can trust someone to watch your children for a few moments just so you can break away for a minute and regain your strength, by all means do that. So that's R, recover your strength. Then E, express your need for rest. Express to other people when you have reached your capacity to pour, because a part of self-care is setting boundaries. A part of self-care is voicing the fact that you don't have anything else to give. And a lot of times when we say we don't have anything else to give, a lot of times we think that is money, but that goes much further than finances. When you don't have any else to give, there can be something in your mind. You don't have any more emotional strength to pour out. You don't have any more physical strength to give out. E, express when your capacity is completed. And then S, silence the noise. What does that mean? We live in a world where there's so much noise going on. There's so many things going around us to distract us and cause us to lose focus. But why don't you sometimes silence the noise through limiting social media time? We're scrolling on Facebook, we're scrolling on TikTok all day long sometimes, and we're getting inundated by things that we're seeing. And sometimes we can get frustrated, especially if we see someone whose life seems to be so much further along and so much further ahead than ours. But the truth is, a lot of times people are only showing us what they want us to see and what they want us to know. And so sometimes, to cut that frustration, turn off social media, put your phone on do not disturb. It's okay. People will be able to understand your need for rest. If they don't, then that's not a part of your support system at that moment. So silence the noise, sit still, close your eyes, do something that will cause you to rest your mind. And then T, take time to do something for yourself. Take time to do something that you enjoy. Whatever that looks like. You may have different things. Some of you may journal. Some of you may listen to music. Take a staycation. If you can't afford a vacation, a staycation is always in order. But by whatever you do, take time for yourself. And when all else fails, if you don't feel like you can get a grip on your emotions, go see a therapist. Go see a counselor. Jesus and a therapist is always necessary. And so my last point to give to you today is go online to restquiz.com. Rest, R-E-S-T, quiz, Q-U-I-Z.com. And it is an assessment that will help you navigate through your rest. And it will evaluate every area of your life, physical, emotional, mental, and wherever you score the highest, that means you have not rested in that area. And so that's the area of your life that you want to pay attention to. And so I admonish you, I admonish us, especially church leaders and people of faith that feel like we have to be there for everybody else and fail to be there for ourselves. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. When when you are depleted, you can't give out anymore to anyone else. So here's to rest and recovery. I hope that you will heal from the inside out and you will get some rest. Take care of yourselves.